All right, I teased you. In the final portion of this well too long 9 part, 9 hour saga of an episode, we will talk about how I entered the Shaar as a person who was going to live there. So I just set the stage. Things were smoothing out in the program. Things felt very good. I was very happy, and things were looking up. Only problem was I didn't know where I was going to find this ever elusive the one, and if I could even continue going Sundays to the place, to the Shaar, to the yeshiva in Far Rockaway, to the, again, if I didn't explain it thoroughly enough, it was basically a center for people who didn't grow up, or Jewish men who didn't grow up religious, to be in an environment where they can learn about the religion, where they can and be integrated into it, and be invited into families' homes in the neighborhood to see what it's like and what it feels like, and to have rabbis and support systems, especially for them, for people who didn't come from supportive families and households. And for me, I mean, this was like, I wished I could have been there, but there was no way that I was, I hate, it's not like, like my parents were going to let me. Oh, God. I had a whole Syrian world to still be a part of. And so, right. And so there was a moment, I briefly skipped in February, where someone from my cohort recommended that someone knew a person also becoming religious, and we briefly hit it off and within 3 days I thought that was the one. I was very wanting to find the one. Oh, and God, so many lessons there. I guess I was feeling like I knew where I was headed. I almost committed to it. I was basically talked down from it in a 1 8-hour therapy session. Oh, whoa, we were planning what schools we would send our kids to by day 3, but that's the religious world for you. And while I was not wearing black and white yet, like this girl was more looking for, she says, "You're not wearing black and white, but I can see it in your eyes." It's like, yeah, it was where I was headed, I guess. And black and white is like the religious garb. I was still wearing shirts with flowers on them. Gasp. And so maybe my blue kippah was now black. Maybe I was fitting in more, standing out less. And God, and so I'm gonna fast forward us to, it's Memorial Weekend, or one of the Shabbats around that. Basically, my family's gonna be in Deal. And I was tired of mediocre Shabbats. As nice as it was to spend time with them, I wanted to be somewhere that celebrated Shabbat. Shabbat is from Friday night till Saturday night. It's 25 hours of, if you're doing it the Orthodox way, there's no technology usage, there's food and song and prayer and connection. And while we had the food part and some connection part, it just, I felt both isolated, and I felt like I was navigating in mesh dynamics when I was in it. It didn't feel like a healing space for me. It was actually one of processing Shabbats at home was an hour or two out of the 8 hours of the therapy session, if not more. Where basically, if you're wondering what the hell I did, I basically would go through every moment of my week, moment to moment. Not unlike I'm doing now with my year, but I would basically do that with my week. I could remember every single interaction, and if there was a significant one, we'd talk about it and work through it. It was an interesting technique. It was a bit, cyclical, repetitive. There wasn't enough. I would hope, should I be more goal-oriented? I wish there was more, it was more process-oriented, as in like, helping me actually, I mean, I was noticing patterns. I was working through trauma, but I don't know. Some of the therapy was relatively sound. A lot of it just wasn't. And so, certainly nobody does 8-hour sessions. We justified it by saying that people do 8 hours throughout a week, and that we had to stuff it into Mondays because that was the only day that would work with her schedule and mine. And right, but yeah. And so basically I'm trying to remember exactly. I had a point where I didn't want to return to deal, and I was going through a bit of a panic attack because I didn't want to go drive from Brooklyn to deal 2.5 hours just to be at a mediocre, at a Shabbat that didn't feel fulfilling and exciting and new. It was the same old Shabbat that I knew, and I was a bit, not one that I felt I was expanding into, that I saw growth in, that I saw, And so I knew that the Shaar did have Shabbats. I hadn't been to one since January. I also hadn't even been visiting on Sunday in a month. And I knew I had a friend there. And I thought about calling him just to see if he had anything going on. And I remember sitting in a panic attack during a consultation group with Tatarsky in the addiction consultation group that I was still in. I was approved. I was going to be there next year as a clinician, as part of his clinic, which was going to be a dream, and we'll talk about. But not everything's a dream, boys and girls. But anyway, I was too busy having a panic attack to even hear what was going on in the consultation group. It was a busy Friday. I was both leading a meditation group. I led a meditation group from therapists, me and like 7 other older women, religious therapists, and I led it. It was cool. Anyway, so I had that, and then the consultation group, and then a supervision, and then my own group of the young adults group at the clinic I was running, and maybe a client. It was a busy day, and I was not going to be free till 2, and Shabbat was at like 6 or 7. I don't know. And the wind. Sundown is when everything has to shut down, and I have to pick a spot, and I still hadn't told my parents I didn't want to go, and I was still just going to go. Oh my God. And so while I'm having this panic attack, I can barely hear what Tatarsky's talking about, but I hear him say one word, or a few words, and it was upper limit theory. Upper limit theory, and my brain caught it, and it said, whatever he just said's important. And so I Google upper limit theory. And it brings me to a book called The Big Leap, and a concept from Dr. Gay Hendricks that would change my life. This is not clickbait. I still use these theories. And that book basically talked about guilt, shame, and all the things that block people from taking next steps in their life and making their big leaps. On the cover of the book is a fish jumping out of a bowl. It is a wild book to follow if you actually commit yourself to the things. It's one of those. It's not just your average self-help book. This is a clinically trained psychologist, and he's basically giving over relational models in a very simple way, very easy to understand. He's teaching people how to break out of their stuck cycles and trust the universe, and magic happens. It was right up my alley. If The Alchemist was from the spiritual angle, this was from the psychological, and it was like, whoo. And I'm just reading a synopsis on it as I'm like, and I just said, I need to take my big leap. I need to call my friend right now and say I'm going to the Shaar for Shabbat. There's no reason why I should head to deal. So I call my friend, and he says, it's not there's no organized thing. I'm just going to someone's house, but he happens to bump into a lady in the grocery store who says she can host me for the night and for dinner, and it's all going to work out. And again, I'm still hopeful that somehow I'm going to meet the right person that weekend too. Anyway, I ever hopeful romantic, and me quick fixes, and so I call my parents and tell them I'm not coming, which was God again prepping me for years down the line. I'll keep repeating this because it's super interesting that the parallels. I think I used some excuse that I was tired and that I was just gonna be, but I was not tired. I was going to Queens. Going to Queens! Or Long Island, whatever the hell. I think it's right on the border. I was gonna be in Lawrence that Shabbat, but sleeping in Queens. Anyway, I go out there. The hostess was incredible, like a teacher, and super smart. And her husband was super smart, and they were so interesting and asked great questions and were loving. And oh my God, it was like I got to try out this whole warm new world, and it was exciting. They were open arms. I mean, there certainly is an area of people that wouldn't. The Baal Tshuva discrimination came in different ways, and in the world of shidduchim, in the world of matchmaking, it was more in play. But in terms of like families taking us into their houses with open arms, they were very excited to take in. And maybe not for everyone for the best reasons, but this family certainly was one that was very excited to just, yeah, wow, that was cool and fun and nice. And that was half the pitch. For a lot of people, they grew up with neglectful families or separated families and messy families, and so they went and they saw stability in the religious family. For me, it's complex because my friends would, like my friend especially who chose it because of family stability, would look at me and say, "You have a family, you have a," and I'd be like, "They're together. That doesn't mean they're kind to each other or to me." Oh. I didn't even have the language for it at the time. I knew things felt better when I wasn't there. Not all of them were terrible as a unit. And anyway, I had the best weekend. No, I didn't meet my wife, but I had the best weekend. But now and my friend let me know that there was going to be a trip the next week to Lake George, and it was a huge, big annual trip to the cabins in the woods and bonfires and songs, and it was everything I loved. And I'm like, fuck, 2 weeks in a row, and it was going to be like Father's Day. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to tell them? How am I going to tell my parents? I want to go to Lake George. Set a deal. Still not officially summer yet, so I could maybe get away with some of this. Oh my God. Again, at least things were calm on the LIU and the clinic front. For now. And I basically made a deal. My mom had been trying to set me up with a Syrian girl who was religious. And if I went on the date, then I could go to, can you imagine these trades that if I go on this setup date, then I would be then I can go to Lake George. And so I was even hopeful for the date. The girl had this name that I thought was connected to my name, and I'm like, this is perfect, and this story and this whole, and I was just right off the bat, I wasn't shown a picture or like there wasn't I didn't have it wasn't just looks, but the spark was just, it was not, I didn't feel it. Oh. But I didn't know how to say no. And so now I'm in this hole now. How do I say no? Should I just continue? It's one date. You got to give someone a few chances. What's my mom going to say? And my head is just, all the while I'm in Lake George. I go. And a friend, or not a friend yet, but someone sees me. And he basically said, he could feel it. He could feel this weight on my chest. And he says, whatever it is that you're carrying, you got to get rid of. It's going to ruin your weekend. You got to work through it. Do whatever you need to do. Do the thing. And I did another big leap. And this was a massive leap. It seemed so small. But it was just telling this girl that I didn't want to see her again. It was the smallest little thing. But it wasn't. It was, because it was so much less about the dynamic between me and this person, and more about the dynamic between me and my controlling mother, who I was afraid, yeah, and who didn't, more than, there were other women who wanted this setup to work that gave me shit for this too. One date? How do you go on one date? You gotta go on two. I just need to breathe. And so after that, I felt so much more free to enjoy the weekend. And I had been listening to this epic Kabbalistic like podcast about Shabbos, and a rabbi psychologist, Joey Rosenfeld. I had my like people, and he was so cool. And now I guess I wouldn't think he was cool. His opinions are really problematic, but it was a vibe. It was a vibe, and so, oh man, and I'm like doing my meditations. I'm doing my dip. I have a robe on. They all think I'm kind of nuts because I would wear it was a bathrobe. I'd wear a bathrobe before I went in my weekly dips. It was fun. Yeah. It was fun cabin weekend. I was, again, song, food, community, connection, young people my age, wild stories intersecting with mine. And at the end of all this, that friend who had told me about, that new friend who had told me about the thing on my heart that he felt, he looked at me and he basically said, why don't you join? Why don't you join the group? Why don't you just join us for good? Move into the yeshiva in Far Rockaway. And I had been pitched from the rabbis in Or Sameach, when I went in July. I had been pitched from the rabbis at Aish when I was there 2 years before. I've been pitched when I was back in March. Why don't I join? You think I had to frickin' beg to get a, you think I don't want, and more than, I'm in a doctorate program. I didn't scream about my family. It was less of, I'm in a fucking doctorate program. You think I have time to be in a yeshiva? And he's just like, dude, we're all busy. I'm running a company. He's running a company. This guy's running a company. They'll work with your schedule. You can join. Do it. And if you want. And I'm like, he didn't talk like, he had a very way of talking. It was really, yeah. Wow. And so, whoa. Very intelligent person. Enthralling conversations. Would wrap me up like I would lose track of time and space. Wow. Yeah. And so I bought in. I said, fuck it. I have no good reason. You're right. Big leap time. I don't even think I bought the book yet. Maybe I had a copy at this point. I said I would move. It was Sunday or Monday. I said I'd move in by Friday. Imagine this was first week of the summer. Like the summer prior, it was a big deal that I need to make sure that I was there for August. I was going to be moving to Long Island for the summer. And now, and that was Sunday, so on Monday, I get on the phone with my therapist. I'm like, hey, I'm moving to Long Island. I'm going to yeshiva. And she's terrified for me. And she's like, you should, maybe it was an in-person session actually. And she said, you should go to Deal. Hopefully if you tell your parents in person, it won't be so bad. And I go to Deal to tell I drive all the way to fucking Deal. I drive all the way to fucking Deal to tell them in person so it wouldn't be so bad. I sat for dinner. I'm shaking. You're shaking with me, right? It's scary. Mom, Dad, I'm moving to Far Rockaway. I don't even think I said the word yeshiva. I can't remember the language. I initially tried to frame it that it was going to be close to the clinic I was working in, and it was a little closer. And it was just instead of being alone in the house in Brooklyn during the week, so that because I still had to work in Queens during the week, and so that I would have this space. Oh my! See, I'm the lying manipulator. See, I had no space to be authentic. My mom tried to kick me out of the house that night, was yelling on the top of her lungs. Go, what do you, or maybe it wasn't a yell, it was one of the passive aggressive, like, What are you even doing here? You came all the way here to... Oh, my God. And that night got the famous... I don't think she was the one who coined the term, but the famous nomenclature of far fuck away. Oh. She bought me a t-shirt 2 years prior of like, it said, I love you, fuck you. That's how she felt whenever I would tell her no. I would always try and preface it to try and soften the blow. Oh. I love you, fuck you. Consent is important, folks. I wonder why they don't teach it. He's saying no more often. Holy shit. People don't understand when I try and explain to them that my mom didn't want me becoming religious. It wasn't just religion. She didn't want me being free. My son. Go! And I had to drive to work the next night. I gotta be a functioning human at work. It was a Monday night barbecue night. Of course it was. Of course it was. Tuesday I gotta be functioning at work. But on Friday morning, you bet your ass I moved out of that house on the beach. Bye house. Big hugs to the house. Thanks for holding me. It held me for 6 strong months. Yeah. Whoa. And it was my office for a few months before that. But yeah, bravo. Morocco would have a nearby ocean too. I'd have my dips. I would be losing my banyas. Thank you, banyas. But it was still only an hour away. I can drive back sometimes. Oh, I had some really supportive friends that year too that were really kind. There were 2 people particularly, you know who you are. Big hugs. Big hugs. Thanks, boys. Yeah. Oh. It was nice. I had built a patchwork of community that year. I had my people in Great Neck. I had my people in Manhattan Beach Shul. I had my dipping crew. Wow. I forgot one piece. It's interesting, the splits. So I moved in June 18th, whatever it was, in May. Go figure. Wow, in May, I was told my friends were moving to the Hudson Valley and were trying to start something up over there. And I visited. And there was a part of me that put it in my brain somewhere of, hey, if I ever had this is where I would go. And even when I went to the religious center, there was some part of me that said I remember I visited with just one day. I spent the day there. We went on a hike. I saw what they were working on. And I said, if I wasn't going to become religious, this is where I'd go. This is where I would go. If I wasn't on this whole Jewish journey, and that would, yeah. And so I was there. I was right there. I would not really speak to those friends for another 2 years. Wow. Oh. Wow. But wow, the little seeds. And so, yeah, I moved out my stuff. I was in that Friday. I moved big leaps, big fucking leaps. I hear a concept, I grab on. It worked. He said this in the book, Gay Hendricks. He says, they may not like it. Don't think everyone's going to like what you have to say. But you'll be freer. And you'll know. You'll know who's on your side and not. It's, you'll know very quickly. And I was singing the whole way. David, Melech Israel, Chai, Chai. No, I was singing the Syrian version. David, Melech Israel, Chai v'kayam. David, Melech Israel, Chai וקיים, דוד מלך ישראל, חי וקיים. I was singing Tarzan too. Oh, how did that? It was like or Hercules. I will find my way. I can go the distance. Tarzan was Son of Man. Oh my God. Not how did it was like I have read there's so many Disney songs that are basically Balchuva songs. They're about finding yourself and connecting to your truth and going your way. And I was doing it. I remember the drive. It was powerful. It was one of the most powerful move out. I fit everything into my car and drove to Far Rockaway and moved in to that same house that I had come into in the snowstorm in January. And I was going to be a part-time yeshiva student living in a yeshiva. Heading into summer 2022. Holy shit. Okay. With that, we'll finally end the saga. Thank you for sticking with me. You guys are awesome. Wow. I hope this is insightful, entertaining, interesting. Just, whoa, I know. And next episode, things don't stay so smooth. It's always an interesting twist and turn. I'll see you next time.